Okay, this is my first time streaming here, I think. I've streamed once or twice before, but not really to do anything serious. Welcome to those of you who are here. We are going to be doing a stream. This is a request from a viewer, Leon. You asked to make a bullet hell style game. I was preparing to stream and you gave me the idea, so let's do it. Bullet hell style game in Game Maker. Let's prefix this by saying, first of all, I've never made a bullet style game before, so I have no idea what I'm doing. This is going to be interesting. Second, this is completely unscripted, so you're probably going to hear coughs, swearing, all sorts of like mess ups and all that kind of crap. Yeah, let's get started. So let's call this bullet hell. Excuse me. Alrighty. So we have a project. Now, I found some graphics on Open Game Art prior to starting the stream, which we're going to use. They look really cool. Yeah. Oh, also, today we are listening to the best of royalty-free, copyright-free music. So we don't get flagged with a copyright strike since this is on YouTube. If it were Twitch, we'd be listening to 2017's greatest pop dance tracks. But unfortunately, YouTube, I care a little bit more about getting copyright strikes. So welcome to best of 2017's pop music. I'm just going to create a folder on my desktop for graphics. Let's open that up and bring that over here, and we'll start loading these graphics in here. I'm just going to download these one by one. I don't know what sort of format or styling these are in, so we'll have to have a look once we've got them. How's everyone doing this evening or this morning? Actually, I shouldn't say this evening because it depends on where you're from. How are you all doing today? Alright. There we go. We've got that. Let's have a look at these graphics. What do they look like? Are they formatted nicely? Yes, they're formatted somewhat nicely. So we have a background overlay. No worries, Ruined Over. You're most welcome, mate. Thank you for joining us here. Jeff! I have to send you a special message. 1 second. There you go. Alrighty. Great at 4 a.m. Oh, God. It's bedtime, man. It's bedtime. Alright. So let's start bringing these graphics in. What have I done? Actually, I'll tell you what. Let me just sign out of Skype so we don't get disturbed. Let me close out of Skype from here as well. No worries, guys. If it's late, you know, this hopefully will be archived because, you know, I don't know if YouTube is going to flag it for copyright. So I think it'll be archived. So we've got a background. Let's just call this BG. I don't know. BG room. That's BG room. There we go. They always come in as sprites now, so you use sprites for everything. Right now. And I'll be honest, I somewhat dislike this new interface. It's a little bit to work with. So we've got a background. Excuse me. Next up, let's create another background layer. New background layer. Let's call this background here BG room. And then we'll call this one here BG stars. Okay. Alright. Let's bring in that stars background. There it is. Call this BG stars. Then over here we'll set our sprite up correctly. There we go. We will vertically tile this so that it goes on forever. As you can see, it now looks like rain. And we will also set the vertical speed to just say 4. The game will play at a constant rate, I think. So let's just have a look and see what this looks like. Leon, welcome. All right, so there we go. We've got this little stars scrolling background thing going. I'm not sure how well that's going to present on YouTube, but it's there. It's there, and it's working. So now let's have a look at the dimensions of these images so we can set up our room. These are 120 by 160. So let's go to our room settings, set this to 120 by 60. Sorry, 160. There we go. By the way, guys, how is the... if someone could let me know, how is the balance of audio to my voice? I'm not sure if it's too loud. I really didn't do much preparation. I just jumped on. So let me know how that's looking, please. So we've set up the room settings to be correct. Now we'll set up a viewport. We'll enable the use of viewports, and we'll set this here to 120 by 160. And we'll set this here to be, we'll multiply it by 4. So 120 times 4. So, oh god, basic math. So we'll go 480. 160 times 4 by 640. And what that should do is it should give us a room that is now 4 times bigger. Sounds good. Thank you. Sound like a rock star. Alright, that didn't work at all like what I was hoping it would do. What have we done wrong here? We have to tick the visible box for a start. That might help. There we go. So now we've got a room which is 4 times bigger than the actual graphics were. And that can be our stars. I think the stars are actually a little bit too fast. Let's slow them down a little bit. Let's set that from 4 to 2, half as fast. Let's have a look at how that looks. All right, that's a bit better. Okay, so let's get into some of the meat and potatoes of this. Let's also rename this room because this is a bad name. We'll call this RM Level 0. Alright, so first up, we're going to need to create ourselves a ship of some kind. So let's bring in the sprite for this player. And actually, let's categorize some of this as well. I want to keep this project nice and clean because once I'm done, I will package it up and throw it up online for download. So let's call this backgrounds. Oh god, what's up with the spelling today? Backgrounds. There we go. And let's put those into this folder, which did not work at all. There we go, backgrounds. Let's create another group and we'll call this player. Let's throw our player sprites in there. No. Sorry. Game Maker's just being smarter than it needs to be. There we go. SPR underscore player. There we go. And let's put that under the player grouping. There it is. Okie dokie. So now that we have this player, we need to figure out how big they are. We're going to have to slice them somehow. So let's open this up in the image editor, go to image, and we will convert this to frames. So how wide are they? 16? I hope these are even. Let's just try number of frames 3, number of frames per row 3. 16 offset by 1 pixel. That looks not so good. I think maybe they have spacing. Yeah, they got spacing on them. There we go. So let me just work this out quickly. Yeah, no, it has to be 15 with a spacing of 1. And the height, let's just bring this down to the nearest whatever. 16 will do. Actually, if they have a horizontal, let's offset them vertically by 1 and set them to 15. So they're 15 by 15 size sprites. Tyler, hello. Welcome to the stream, my friend. Welcome to the stream. So we have figured out how big they are. We're going to go ahead and import the blue ones. Let's just click convert. I'll tell you what, let's go add 6 more and set this back to 3. Number of frames per row 3, number of frames is 6. If you guys hear me go quiet for a second, I will just add, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm just muting the microphone to go and have some water. So yeah, there we go. And we'll add 2 vertical separations. No, we'll add 1 vertical separation. Yeah, that's better. Alright, so now we can import all of these. We've got player 1 and player 2, basically. Let's just take those and cut them, and then we'll create a new sprite, SPR player 2. We'll paste them in there like that. We'll get rid of these. Then we'll also center the image in the middle center. We'll do the same thing for this one. Middle center. There we go. And let's zoom in on that, make sure that actually took effect. Yes, it did. Wonderful. Okay. So we have a sprite for the player. We have a room. Let's go ahead and create a player object. So let's call this obj_player. One other thing I want to do. The player in this game is always going to be flying upwards. So let's go ahead and rotate this image. Edit image. Let's just go image, rotate. Should we do flip? No, rotate all frames anti-clockwise. Oh, it doesn't matter. We just do the same thing twice. Just do that twice. There we go. And then we'll do the same thing for this one. So just edit one of these. Image. Could probably just go like that. Like that. There we go. Right, so now the players are facing up. That's the direction we want them to face. Now let's give our player sprite... Oh crap, wrong button. Delete that. We don't need that. Let's give our player object, sorry, a sprite. We're going to go into the blue player is the one that I wanted. Are you making a Toho-like game? Yes. Did I make the sprites? No, I didn't make the sprites, man. I just downloaded them off of a website which I've since lost. Open Game Art. If you are interested in getting graphics for your games and don't know where to find them, Open Game Art is a great place. I just searched in here Shmup, and I think it was this one here. Just downloaded the graphics from there. Also, if you are interested, I do have an article which I wrote like literally 3 years ago or 2 years ago on my website called Where to Find Great Game Assets, which has a bunch of links to places that you can find game assets. I will send you a copy of this for your viewing pleasure. Right, anyway, sorry, back to the game. We have a player. Let's go ahead and create instances layer. Let's rename this to game objects. I can't have spaces, of course. Game objects. Actually, let's just call this inst game objects. There we go. And we'll go ahead and throw our player down on the map. Let's set our grid up nicely. So how big was this room? This room was 120. So 120 divided by 16 is not going to fit evenly. Let's just work out what will fit evenly. There we go, 5. So let's set our X grid to 5. Actually, if 5 works, 10 should work. There we go. And our Y grid should also work as 20. That'll do. Right, so now we can take our player and drag it into the middle. I think that should be dead center. 60 by 140. Now let's run our game quickly, have a look. Alright, that's working. Now this animation is not working, obviously, but that's fine. It's just playing something for us. We're going to use the W, S, A, and D controls to fly around. So let's go back to our player. Let's add a create event, and I'm not going to worry about comments. Let's just say image speed equals 0. Is it image speed? I can't remember. There we go. So now that the player is not moving, and let's say that our image, what are we going to call this? Sprite facing left equals 0. Actually, is that right? No. Let's move. So what we're going to do is we're going to rearrange these so that the one that's on the left is on the left, middle, and then right. So it's almost like flying left, flying straight, flying right. So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 0, and this is going to be 2. Let's do that for Sprite Player 2 as well. So if that is centered, that is flying right. Let's move this to the left. So we have left, middle, right. Left, middle, right. That's cool. So back in our object player, I'm going to set up some variables. Sprite facing left is 0. Sprite facing center is 1. And we'll set up another one. Sprite facing right is 2. These are our frames of animation. And image speed is obviously 0. So then let's go ahead and add a step event. Step. There we go. Now let's think about moving. How are we going to deal with movement? So we could simply do the old. Yeah, let's do the old. If actually no, sorry, not if. X equals, and we're going to say keyboard check ORDA to see if we're pressing the A key, which is our left direction. So it's times by -1 because we want to go left. If it's true, true is 1. So we multiply it by -1. It becomes -1 plus. We're going to add our D value for this. And D doesn't get multiplied by anything because if we are facing right, we are simply at a speed of 1. So let's just say X input, and then down here we'll say X plus equals X input times by speed, and we'll create a variable called flight speed equals 1. So right now it's 1. Flight speed. Now in theory, if that's correct. No, it's not correct. What have I done wrong? Did I mess up the statements here? Yeah, I did. Thank you, Dogan. Much appreciated. So we have A and D. Wouldn't the arrow keys play better for a shmup? Kim, I have no idea. Honestly, I've never made a shmup before. I'm just you're probably right. Arrow keys, yeah, you're right. Let's use arrows. Keyboard check. VK left. Times by -1. So if this is false, it's 0. Anything times by 0 is 0. And let's just throw in here a VK right. Let's have a look at what we get out of that. There we go. So arrow keys are working now. So what that's done is essentially, I'll explain that for anyone who, I mean, it's simple math, but I think just in case someone didn't get it, let's explain it. So keyboard check VK left. This function returns true or false. True or false is always comparable to 0 or 1. So if it is not pressed, the left button, then the value will be 0. We multiply it by -1 because the left direction is always X minus whatever. If we're going left, we're subtracting, so we need to be minus, right? So if it is 1, 1 multiplied by -1 is going to be 1. So, you know, obviously 1 times by -1, 1 times by... I can't do -1 in this calculator, I don't know how you do it. But anyway, 1 multiplied by -1 is -1. If it was not pressed and the value is false, false being 0 or nothing, 0 multiplied by -1 is 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So if the button is pressed, we are left, -1. If it's not pressed, we are nothing, 0. Then we add simply true or false. If the right button is pressed, the value is 1. If it's not pressed, it's 0. So if neither button is pressed, 0 plus 0 is 0. If the left button is pressed, -1 plus 0, it'll move left. And if the right button is pressed, 1 plus 0 is going to be +1, and therefore we will move to the right. Just to demonstrate that again, we now have left and right movements. The other thing that we can do is we have this flight speed variable, so we can increase the speed to 3. Now if we come back down here, X input is either going to be -1 or +1. So -1 times by flight speed, which is 3, is going to be -3. And +1 times by flight speed, which is 3, is going to be +3. So if we change that single variable, we will have a faster movement. So I'll go ahead and I'll leave that as 2 for now. Okay, so we have some basic movement. Let's do the same thing for our y variables. Let's just say y. In this case, we will do vk up and vk down. And then we just apply that to our y position. So y input, and then multiply by flight speed. Now we should have full 4-directional movement. There we go, with our arrow keys. Like so. Okay, so next thing we can do is we can apply our animation frame. So, first thing we can do is say, oh, hang on a minute, let's have a look at this. If X input is negative, if we're headed towards the left, it's going to be -1. If we're not pressing anything, it's 0, and if we're pressing something, it's 1. Now, if we have a look at our animation frames, these are left is 1, oh, sorry, 0, left is 0, right is 1, and, forward, not moving anywhere is 1, and moving to the right is 2. So we can do something kind of clever here. Because the number starts at -1, if we simply added 1, we just went +1, then we would be at the offsets that match our sprites. So we could say image index equals X input +1. Remembering now that if we're pressing left, it's going to be 0, because -1 + 1 is 1. Sorry, 0. If we're not pressing anything, it's 1. So 1 + 1 is 2, which is our second frame. And our third frame, is that right? I think that's right. Let's have a look. Oh, sorry, 0 + 1 is 1. And then if we're pressing right, it's 1 + 1 is 2. There we go. So we have our frames of animation working, and we didn't have to use any if statements, which is pretty significant, because it's the less if statements we use, the better for performance purposes. So actually, we don't need these facing directions. We can get rid of that. That's good news. All right, so we have our, let's add some comments in here so we remember what these are. Check for input, select animating, so select frame index, and then apply motion. There we go. Get rid of the period. So we have some movement now. Let's talk about what do we do next? Let's create a couple of enemies. So what sort of graphics do we have? We have a bunch of graphics here. We have a bunch of bullets and a bunch of enemies. So let's drag these in. There they are. We'll go ahead and just middle center that. It doesn't matter. Let's edit the frames. And we need to splice these up like we did the players. Now I'm hoping that they're all organized nicely. We know that there's 3 frames per row, and 3, 6, 9, 12. There should be 12 frames in total, 3 per row. Now I believe they are 15 by 15, roughly. Let's shift this down by 4. And we know that they have a horizontal offset of 1 and a horizontal spacing of 1. So that should put us about right. Assuming one of these is moving left and one of these is moving right. Actually, I don't know what these frames are. Actually, these frames are simply moving down, I think firing a weapon, and then I think they've been hit with damages. I think what these are. And then our vertical offsets, our vertical spacing should be 1. That looks right. That needs to be 15. Are they centered though? They're not centered. They're almost 1 frame out. What if I set this back to nothing and added another? That's because then it doesn't add up. That should be okay. As long as they're starting on the same pixel, which they are, then the right side shouldn't matter too much. That should be fine. Let's have a look. So what have we got here? We have 3 frames for each enemy. So now let's come over here and create a little bucket called enemies. Hello, how are you doing today? Let's go ahead and create a sprite called SPR enemy 1 and come back in here, and we can take the, I'm only going to use the red ones for this, by the way, because since our player is what is our player? Our player is blue. That means that if we use the red enemies, it'll be obvious who's enemies. Let's create another one. Let's call this sorry, not add a group, I meant to add a sprite. Let's add a sprite. Create sprite. SPR enemy. That's not how you spell enemy. Enemy 2. Oh my god. Enemy. Phonetic spelling for the win. Let's change that. Enemy. There we go. Now back in our little array over here, let's take these 3 sprites and let's put them in here like that. So now we have this. Let's middle center them. Obviously enemy 1 is sort of our beginning wave. And these ones, I don't think we need these anymore. Let's get rid of those. Okay, so now let's begin by creating some objects based off of these enemies. Let's create some groupings in here as well. Let's call this player. Put the player under that. Let's create another group. We'll call this system. And let's put player underneath system. And then we'll add a final group. We'll call it enemy. Now let's create an object. And we'll call this obj enemy 1. This is going to be our weakest enemy. Let's select our enemies and choose our basic enemy. And then let's add a step event. Actually, let's add a create event. We'll set up some variables. I wonder if we can use parenting for this to have, how would that work? I don't know how that would work actually. Let's just do it one by one. Make it easy for ourselves. That's fine. Let's say flight speed equals 1, 2. Sorry. Let's add a step event, and we'll just say y plus equals flight speed. So now they move down, and then we'll add another one that says when they are outside of the room, instance destroy. So it'll destroy itself once it flies out of the room. I need to put them on the map as well. Whoops. Let's throw some of those guys on the map. Why is he so big? What? Why is that so big? Is that sprite set like at a different scale? That's freaking weird. Why would they both be at different scales? So this is one of the main problems you have to deal with. They're not at different scales. That's freaky. Does anyone in the comments here see if I did something stupid? I'm just curious because that's kind of weird. Obviously that's 15 by 15. These guys are 64 by 64. How did they get so big? Alright, let's try something again. Let's bring this guy back in. Split it back up. Sorry for the repetition. Normally, if I obviously was making a tutorial, I would have edited all this out. They were 15 by 15, I'm sure they were. 12 frames, 3 per row, 0 on the horizontal offset, 4 on the vertical offset, 1 and 4. Sorry, I put that wrong. They have a spacing of 1, an offset of 1, a a spacing of 1 there too. There we go, that's got them better. And an offset of 1. Okay, that'll do. Is the size... Yeah, no, it's not supposed to be 64 by 64. It's kind of weird. Because I'm certain that they were imported at, yeah, 15 by 15. I wonder if when I hit create sprite, it put them as 64 by 64. And when I copy pasted the frames out and pasted them in here, they were rescaled to 64 by 64. It looks like that's what's happened. So in that case then, cut. What if I was just to say in here? No, see, they're still 64 by 64. So back over here then, I wonder if there's a way to extract these. Nope. Alright, let's just be cheap. Let's just duplicate this and then do this the dodgy way. Delete everything except for the frame that we want. There we go. Let's get rid of all of these. Let's put this up here and we'll call it rename SPR enemy 1, and then we'll do the same thing for this guy. And this one we will just take that guy like that. SPR enemy 2. Middle center those. That's better. And then middle center on that. That was really weird. Maybe we found a bug. Excuse me. There we go. Middle center on that. Thank you, Top Ice 1 Level Max Jelly 2 Master Pro XXL. Oh, longest username ever. I think you're right. I think they were rescaled. That is really annoying that it would do that. Anyway, let's go. Look, it's done it to our second player as well. Look at the difference between our player 1 and our player 2 objects. So maybe we've encountered a bug here in Game Maker. But let's have a look and see how this works now that we can drag them onto the room, and they should fly down towards us. There we go. So they're flying down towards us, and they destroy themselves when they leave the room, leaving no memory leaking behind, basically. The other thing I want to do is turn their image speed to 0, so that they're not animated. Oh, Shane Smith. Not much. How you going, mate? All right, let's run this. Now they should move down. Constant speed, no animation. Wonderful. Wonderful. Now we need to figure out... Right, we've got this system object here. Now I think the way that this game can work is either through timing. I'm just wondering how this would work. We have enemies that move down. And I mean, if you want to make them wobble, this is kind of simple, but you can just add, you know, sine Y. So you add a sine wave to it. You can multiply that by however much you want them to... Oh, sorry. You need to do that to their X. X plus equals sine Y. Let's have a look at that. Right, see they'll wobble left and right. Now if you multiplied that by, you know, say 5, then their wobbling factor would be, well, you get the idea. That's that's how we get them to move left and right. Obviously, they're not moving smoothly to those positions, but you know that's how we add a wobble to them. So we, oh man, I don't know if you're gonna learn much here. We're inexperienced. Anyway, so we've got them moving down in a straight line. That's good enough for now. Now we need to think about how is this game gonna play. There needs to be some form of progression. From basic levels to the next level. So we have enemy 1, which is a slow-moving... Let's leave it actually at speed 1. And let's put a description in here of what it actually does as well. So it's a slow-moving, downwards, down-only movement enemy. Right? Our next enemy... Just leave the wobble here. Our next enemy is going to be almost exactly the same, except this enemy will fire bullets. So let's create a duplicate of this, and we'll call this object enemy 2. Slow moving, down only, fires bullets. Fires bullet. There we go. So these will be the same, except these ones fire bullets. So that means we need to create a bullet sprite. So let's add a grouping, bullet, and let's go back to our graphics folder, and let's drag our bullets into the game. There we go. We have bullets. Now let's also go and edit the image, and we will convert to frames. Now there are so there's 8 frames with 4 per row. They look to be, I don't know how wide this is, let's just say 8. No, so they're 16 wide by 16 tall. Okay. Maybe they are 15 by 15. Because 15 puts them in the center if they have a horizontal offset of 1. No, it doesn't actually. Spacing of 1. But then the bottom row is no longer centered. I don't know if it's just me and my bad maths, or if this artwork isn't actually lined up correctly, but I'm just gonna go with it for now. I'm just gonna say that I'm happy with that and just like leave it, you know. Good night, Kim. Thanks for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. Let's delete these frames. So we have... I honestly can't stand that being out of center. Maybe it can't be centered. Maybe that's the reason. That's the thing, because it's 4 by 4 and a 16 by 16 sized sprite. Let's just put it at 9 by 9. Yeah, see, they can't be centered because they're not... Oh well, whatever. It'll do. Good enough. Good enough. So we have bullets. Let's put that into the bullets folder. Let's rename it to SPR bullet. And we'll create a singular bullet object. Let's create a folder for this. Add a group called bullet. And let's create an object called SPR bullets. There we go. Oh, sorry, not SPR, sorry, OBJ. OBJ underscore bullet. Now for this one, we will select our bullet sprites. There we go, sprite bullet. And we will also middle center these. Yep, this is as good as it's going to get. Oh, they are centered. Yeah, obviously this one can't be, because it's 4 by 4, but that's fine. That's fine. And this one, let's edit this sprite a little bit so that it is actually in the center. It's 1 to the left. There we go. So now it is centered, and let's do the same thing for that one. Oh crap. Let's move that one down to about there. That way they will be centered in the frame. Okay, cool. So that's done. We have a bullet sprite set on our object. Let's add a create event. Image speed equals 0 so it doesn't animate. And let's define some bullet names here. Let's call this... our enemies are all red, so let's get rid of the blue one. Actually, let's duplicate this. And we'll call the first one that we just made enemy bullets, and we'll get rid of the blue sprites. Like that. So now it's only the enemy bullets. So we'll call this enemy bullet. And then we'll do the same thing for this one, but this one is going to get rid of the red sprites. And we'll call this player bullets. That one's okay, that one's okay. That frame needs to be edited so that it moves down to there. And we'll call this player bullet. There we go. That way we can differentiate with the colors. So we have enemy bullets and player bullets. Now in our bullet object, let's go back and we will say, for this one, we're going to define 3 constants. They're going to be long bullet, small circle bullet, and large circle bullet. So long bullet equals 0. Large circle bullet equals 1. And small circle bullet equals 2. So that is frame 0, frame 1, frame 2. Those are our different bullets. And then we'll say image index equals, I know this is redundant, but I like to write stuff like this just because it helps me visualize what's actually happening. So this is going to be don't animate. Then we'll say bullet types. And then over here, we'll say TED-Off Gaming, will it be recorded for later? It may be recorded. I'm not sure. I have music playing in the background from the best of royalty-free, no copyright music. So hopefully it will remain up, but in those videos of no copyright music, you really don't know if YouTube decides one day that it's going to be copyrighted. As in, you know, when it's finished processing the video. So honestly, I don't know. I will try and make it live if the video is able to be live without it like ruining my channel. Awesome, wonderful. So yeah, this here is just going to say which bullet are we using. There we go. So there's our bullets. Now our second enemy fires a bullet. So some other things that we need to define are bullet speed. So bullet params. There we go. Speed. So say bullet underscore speed equals 1. That's going to be the speed. Actually, it needs to be, let's just say 3. Actually, let's just say 2. No, let's say 3. It needs to be faster than the thing that shot it. We can change this when it's created anyway. And then we add a create event. A step event. And we need the bullet. The other thing we need to do is we need to do this. Zikrons! Welcome. The other thing we need to do is we also need a bullet direction, because bullets can be, I don't know what the right word is. Orbital? No, that's not the right word. They can move in any direction anyway. So we'll just say bullet direction equals. Now, 90 is, I think 0 is to the right. So 90 in Game Maker is down or up. Either way, we'll soon find out. So we need to move the bullet in the direction at the defined speed. So in order to do that, we are going to use the X direction function. So that's length dir X. This takes in a direction as a parameter and a length. The length is going to be 1 and the direction is going to be bullet dir. We'll do the same thing for Y. So the Y direction is going to be the same thing, except the function we use is length dir Y. What this means is it's like, give me a pixel. Give me a point in space. I believe it's a floating point number that represents the direction from center point at an angle, however long I want it to be. Let me draw that, because that made no sense, my explanation there. I have a point in space, and I say I have a direction. That's my direction. Now, I have a 2D sprite, and I need to know, this is my 2D sprite. From this point here, what is the X and Y value of this point here? Right? So length dir X will give me this value. I'll draw that in blue. Will give me that value. And length dir Y will give me this value. Now, if I add both the X and Y to my player's position in small increments, essentially what will happen is the player will take steps, or the object will take steps along this path for infinity, all the way up to the very end. 90 is level up. Oh, 90 is up. I don't understand what that means. Sorry. 90 is up. 90 is up. Gotcha. 90 is up. Okay, so if 90 is up, then 0 is right. So that means 270 is down. So let's just set this to 270. because 180 would be the opposite of right. If 0 is right, then 180 would be left, so 270 has to be down. So now let's throw a couple of bullets on the screen and just see what they do. Let's see if they head in the direction that they've been defined as to go. And they do nothing. Why do they do nothing? Oh, because I didn't apply anything to their position. So let's define... We've got their X and Y positions. We have their speed. Now let's say X plus equals X dir multiplied by bullet speed. And then we'll do the same thing for the Y position. And now, hopefully, the bullets will move in the appropriate direction. There we go. So they're moving down. Now, the other thing we need to do is say... we're going to say that the image angle is going to be equal to bullet dir. Now, I hope what that means. I think what that means. That didn't work. 270. Oh, because the sprites are all facing this way. So we need the sprites to be facing the right direction. So let's go and image rotate these. Let's rotate all frames clockwise by 90 degrees. And have a look how that sits in here. That sits fine. Let's do the same thing for these ones. So if they're facing the right direction, which is 0, and then we apply 270 to them for their rotation, then what that means is they should be facing the correct direction, which is down. Yeah, so now they're facing down. So what this also means, which is kind of cool, is that we can set this to a random number between 0 and 360, and the bullet should fire away in that direction. There we go. And they face the correct direction as well. But we won't do that just yet. We're just going to say that these are facing down. All right. So we have bullets facing down. They are moving towards the player. Now we need to... What are we doing next? We need our enemy, our second level enemy, to fire those bullets. So our first enemy was called... that one there should be the first enemy. Let's call this OBJ enemy 1. This object should be OBJ enemy 2. Now, just trying to think. Make sure these are correct. Yeah, these are object enemy 1. That's good. These are object enemy 2. So what we'll do for object enemy 2 is we'll set their flight speed as 0 for now, so that they don't move around, and we'll put a few of them on the map. We'll put some of these guys just here. Oops. Not there, but that'll do. Put one there, and then we'll put another one there. So now we should have some enemies that don't move around. Then what we'll do is we'll come over here to our enemy 2. Does enemy 1 still have that? No, they don't. Good. So our enemy 2 is going to have an alarm, and the alarm will be set to shoot a bullet at an appropriate speed. So let's get rid of this chunk of code here because we don't want them to wobble yet. And then what we want to do is have a fire rate, and let's set this to 60 for now. 60 frames. Alarm 0 equals fire rate. Guys, I'll be back in literally 30 seconds. I just have to blow my nose. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Right, so we have a fire rate now. And we have an alarm which is now firing at fire rate. So let's go into our alarm. And then we will say in here that we want the alarm to fire again at fire rate. So now we have a sort of infinite loop, infinite timer. Now with this, we can create a bullet. Now, for the sake of simplifying our repeated code here, I'm going to create a script called fire bullet. And in this script, we are going to take a... What are the parameters of our bullet? The parameters of our bullet are the bullet type, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. The bullet type, I'll tell you what, let's just copy this, easier. Let's put that there. And then what we'll do is we'll just comment all of that out so we don't actually see it. So the first thing we need to do is define the type. So we're going to have argument 0 is going to define the type. Then we'll have argument 1 will define the direction. And argument 2 will define the speed. So what we'll do is we'll say with instance create at depth. The X and Y position is simply X and Y because that is going to be the position of the object that created it. Thank you, O'Shane. And the depth is just going to be 0. Let's just leave it at that for now. And the object is going to be obj_bullet. There we go. So we have a bullet. Now with that object, we can now define that bullet image index. We can now define that bullet, image index. Sorry, I'm getting confused now. Image index equals argument 0. And then we also need to do our other 2 parameters, which are bullet direction, which is argument 1, and bullet speed, which is argument 2. There we go. So now we have a function that allows us to create. Now I know these parameters aren't correct. I know there's some sort of way to do this in GameMaker Studio 2, but I can't be bothered figuring it out right now to make the autocomplete show up. So over here in our type direction speed, in our second enemy, we are going to use the function fire bullet, and it takes a parameter of type, which we're going to say 0. Direction is 270 and speed is going to be 2. Alright, so let's have a look and see if he fires a bullet down. Are they doing it? Yes, they're doing it. Yay, there we go. You see the bullets, they're firing down. Here they come. There it is. So this enemy fires a bullet down, you know, at such a rate. Well, obviously we're going to have to like avoid those bullets so that we don't get hit. And we could make this a lot smoother by changing our game speed to... I'm not sure if it's set to 60 FPS. I'm not even sure how you do that in GameMaker in Studio 2. I remember in Studio 1 there used to be a function where you could just... Sorry, I'm going off topic here, but there used to be a function where you could just come in and set room speed. I'm not sure if you can do that anymore. Oh well, we'll figure that out later. The other thing is smoother movement. Basically, we'll just not use movement by pixels. You know, we use acceleration and deceleration using the lerp function. We'll get into all of that later. So now we have an enemy that fires a bullet. Let's settings. It's on the right in settings. It's on the right in settings. Configurations? Options. Windows. No. Under options. Main. Ah, there we go. Thank you for that. Games frames per second. 60. There we are. So let's change that to 60. We might need to adjust our speeds now because everything's going to be twice as fast. Yeah. Yeah. Super duper speed game. That's better though. So let's go back into our vertical speed, set that to 1. Sorry about this, guys. I just want to, you know, sort of tweak as we go. Flight speed is 1, which is fine. Our player, let's set the flight speed to 0.5. Our player object needs a flight speed much slower than 2. Let's make them 0.5 as well. Thanks, Gloomy Toad. Much appreciated. There we go. Alright, so that's too slow now. Flight speed for the player can be 1. Flight speed for the enemy can be 1. Make them move at the same speed now. And then we'll go and adjust the bullet speeds. That's better. Now, obviously, we have this diagonals moving faster than just playing left and right, but that's all right. Very simple for the moment. So we have enemies firing at us now. That's great. So the next thing we need to do is create a... What are we going to do? Let's create a collision with the player that spawns an animated explosion, and then it destroys itself. Do we have animate? Yeah, we do have animated explosions. So let's bring those in. Let's actually, tell you what, let's slice this up first. Convert to frames. 3 by 3. These are going to be... Can Game Maker Studio do top-down like games? Yeah, of course it can. You just need the graphics for it. So these are 16 by 16. There we go. So we have 16 by 16 sprites. Yes, we will do that. And then what we'll do... So that looks pretty cool. I like that. Then what we'll do is we'll just rename this... actually, let's add a new group called FX. And we'll put the explosion in there, and we'll rename it SPR underscore explosion. And we'll also middle center that. There we go. Now, what we'll do is we'll say when the player collides with a bullet, we're going to spawn an explosion at the bullet's position. Actually, no, let's do this the other way around. No, let's do it this way around. Let's say when the player collides with a bullet. Yeah, O'Shane, Game Maker is quite powerful. Game Maker Studio 2 is a little bit annoying, but it is extremely powerful. It's a great toolkit for doing top-down games. I'm going to add an FX object as well, and in this we'll create an object, obj underscore, we're going to call this explosion. There we go. And then we will add a sprite, and we will use the FX sprite explosion. And then we'll go ahead and say there's an animation animation end function. So when the animation is completed, a final fight brawler type game is hard on Game Maker Studio. Is that true? I don't know what final fight brawler is, so let me Google that. Oh, no, man. That's just a side-scrolling beat-em-up. That's not hard on Game Maker. This is the tool for anything 2D. Like, if you're doing a 2D game, this is what you want to use. You can use Unity for 2D. It works great, but it depends on the size of your game. If you're making a game like what we're doing today, you can complete it over a weekend. You know, Game Maker's the tool. You can use Game Maker for larger projects. I find that there is a point at which Game Maker starts to get in the way that Unity doesn't. So the way I think about it, if I had to draw a graph for you, is that like it's kind of like ease over time. Game Maker is like very easy, and then as you use it longer and your game gets bigger, it gets more harder. And Unity is more like extremely hard to begin with and a lot slower at starting your projects, but then over time, as long as your architecture is right, for a long-term project, it's much easier to maintain. Whereas Game Maker projects tend to get more and more complicated as they move along and harder to maintain. Anyway, how long have I been using Game Maker? Jeez, I've been using Game Maker since like I started using it when I was a kid, actually. I was playing with it when it was run by a guy. What was his name? I can't remember his name. He had a bit of a strange name. Anyway, probably around Game Maker 3 or 4. Anyway, so animation end. Once this function fires, it means the animation is over. We'll destroy the instance. So we'll just say instance destroy, and we'll get rid of this when the animation is over. So now we have a way to create an animation and destroy it once the animation is over. Then what we'll do is we'll say when the player collides with a bullet, we are going to create, we're going to say with other. Actually, no, I think we can just say instance destroy other. So we'll get rid of the bullet, and then we'll say instant create, and we're going to create at depth. At depth, this is going to be x. So this is going to be other.x, other.y. So we'll move this around. So it's other.x, other.y. Depth is going to be 1 this time because we want it to be above the player, and the obj underscore explosion. There we go. So we're going to create an explosion where the bullet hits, and then we're going to destroy the other object being the bullet. So let's have a look and see if this works. Sorry guys, my phone's ringing. Can you guys give me just 2 seconds? I just want to make sure this isn't important. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Do I consider myself a pro now? I never consider myself a pro at anything, because I'm not. There is a million and one things to learn, always, whenever you're doing anything. So there you go. Now we've got this like effect where the bullets will essentially create the explosion where they hit on our character. Even if I sort of back into them, I don't think I can. Let me see if I can just get one to hit the bottom side of my guy. There you go. The other thing I'm noticing is that they are below our ship. I want them to be above our ship. So it's not 1, let's set the depth to -1. Make sure that that's above. There we go. So now the explosions are appearing above our ship. Well, actually, do you know what? I think the above explosions are okay. Let's make the explosions appear both above and below. So what we'll do is we'll say choose, and we'll say -1 or 1. So now what happens, the choose function basically just picks one at random. So now bullets are going to hit us at random, and they're going to appear either above or below, depending on when they hit. Sometimes they're above, sometimes they're below. The effect of this will look a little bit more convincing if our fire rates were a little higher. So if our enemy 2 object was firing at, say, how does fire rate work again? Oh, fire rate, there we go. Let's say they were firing at, say, 15 frames. There we go. Now you'll see that some of the bullets are above and some are below. If I try and run into them, I think that makes it a little bit more convincing. Sorry, Tyler, I didn't finish your question off properly. I got distracted. No, I don't consider myself a pro, especially not at Game Maker Studio 2, just because, you know, it's quite new. I haven't really spent that much time playing with it to the depths that I had played with Game Maker Studio 1. But in answering your question, no, I don't find myself a pro at many things, just because, like they always say, there's always someone who is better than you. And usually there's a lot of people who are not as good as you. So you're never really the best at anything. You're only, you know, as good as your experience gets you. And so continue experimenting and playing games and making games and doing stuff like this, and you will get better. But, you know, there's a point where you can create whatever you want. Are you a pro? Maybe. So that's what I mean. I have Game Maker Studio. Should I buy Game Maker Studio 2? Again, that's totally up to you. I find Game Maker Studio 2 a little annoying. So that's just my opinion. But it certainly is powerful. It has a lot more features that Game Maker Studio 1 didn't have that it definitely needed. But, you know, like the way this window works, you know, these windows are like self-managing. I can't just take this window and drag it off the screen because it doesn't let you. So, you know, I find it a little annoying, but it's... I can't really say. It's totally up to your own needs whether or not you need it or not, to be honest. Okay, so we have a player, we have a bunch of bullets. The next thing I wanted to do was create a... What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? We have these chains things here. I don't think we're going to use any of that. Let's just what are we going to do next? I want to create one of those like cool circular bullets, you know, like an enemy who comes in and fires in a circle around them. So let's duplicate enemy 2. Let's duplicate that, and let's rename this enemy 3. There we go. Now enemy 3 Andrew Kerr. Yeah, man, exactly. It's exactly as you say. Like, a tutorial lasts for 20 minutes, but the actual code that goes into it and the time to get to a point, you know, like if we made a tutorial on what we've accomplished so far, it's a 20-minute tutorial, you know? But the actual time involved in development, we've been here for an hour, you know? So it takes a lot longer to get to this point than it does to just present it as a tutorial. But yeah, no, I agree with you, of course. So what we wanted to do is we want to create a bullet. Now the bullet we're going to use is the third bullet. So this is 0, 1, 2. So we're going to be using sprite index 2 for this one. So this is going to be sprite index 2. And this time we are going to count up from 0 to 360. Is that right? No, let's count from 90 all the way to 360. 90 to 360. No, hang on a minute. That doesn't work. Let's count from 0 to 360. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. So this is going to be start_dir equals 0. Storm plays. Can I upload the video when the stream is done? Honestly, I don't know. It depends on the copyright on the music. I hope we can. So starting direction equals 0. And we are going to go end direction. No, what am I doing that for? That's stupid. We don't need to do that. That's just dumb. We need to say current direction equals 0. In the step event, actually no, we need a fire rate. The fire rate for this one is going to be quite high. In the fire rate, we're going to say that the current direction plus equals 1. Is that right? Actually, no, what we'll do in the step event, we will say current direction plus equals rotate speed. Okay, and then we'll create a variable in our start rotate speed equals 0.1. Then what we'll do is we'll say if hang on a minute, we can do a, how do we do this? If, I'm sure there's a function for this. Oh, we'll just do it the long way. If current direction is greater than or equal to, just greater than 360, then we will just loop it back to 0. Current direction equals 0. So we're always rotating now, and then whenever fire rate fires, we will fire in the direction of current direction. And we'll fire the circular bullet, and then we'll re-trigger the fire rate. So now let's throw one of these guys in the room and have a look. Let's throw an object enemy 3 onto the grid right there. Now we should have a circular, we should have a firer that he fires. See how he's rotating the bullets in a circle? So what this means is that our rotation speed is not fast enough and our fire rate is way too fast. So I'm going to go back in here and let's adjust some of these parameters. So our rotation speed is going to be 1 and our fire rate is going to be 10. And let's have a look what we get now. So now we've got this sort of circular spinning thing. Alright, that's cool. And obviously, well not obviously, but kind of obviously, we can double this by simply doing this and then subtracting 180 degrees. So now he'll fire in 2 directions at the same time. Opposing directions. You can see how these simple mechanics are sort of starting to come together now. And again, obviously, you know, if we wanted to fire it in, you get the idea, right? We can do it multiple ways. We can just simply add, 90 degrees each time. So we just say plus, it doesn't matter which way we do it, as long as we hit the 4. Say plus 90, plus 180, and then plus 270. And then whatever direction, current direction is, we now have the 4 opposing corners. So now it fires in 4 directions. Now I think that the bullet speed is probably too fast for that guy, so the fire rate is good, but the speed at which the bullets travel is way too fast. So we'll adjust that. And we'll have a look. There we go. That looks like some bullet hell mechanics to me. All right, so we have some guy who's shooting bullets now. Kind of cool. We'll save these here for our next ones. If your ship is moving forward, then are their ships moving backwards? My eyes can't figure it out. Technically, their ships should be moving forwards, but they don't have any motion applied to them at the moment. So, well, actually, that's a good point. What direction is the background moving? Yeah, the background's moving at an appropriate direction. So that makes us... Yeah, you're right. They're moving backwards. No, they'll move forwards later. The other thing that you've just kind of pointed out to me is that the background, as cool as it is, I want to duplicate this stars layer. And I want to change the speed at which this one moves and also the offset. So let's... Obviously, it's tiled. If we horizontal tile it, and then we move the offset by, say, 50, you'll see we get like another set of stars. Let's offset it by a bit more. Let's offset it by 100. No, that's too much. 80. Right. Now, these ones, if we move these ones at a slower speed, say 0.5, we should have a better depth effect because of parallax. We'll have stars in the back moving slower than stars in the front. So there's our parallax effect. Kind of simple, easy to do system there. The stars and bullets almost look the same. Yeah, I know. We can change the... I'll tell you what, let's do that. Let's just go into our backgrounds layer and edit this. And then all we'll do is... Well, actually, this is going to be a lot of work, but... Is GMS too good for GUI games, like quiz games? It doesn't handle GUIs very well, to be honest, but... I mean, of course you can do it. You just create objects for all of your buttons, and you deal with the click events, and you can do GUIs like that in GameMaker. Unity is definitely the winner when it comes to GUI handling. Anyway, so... Now we have some different kinds of enemies. We need... Did you say you use RPG Maker 2000? Is that why your name is RPG RM2K Dev? Yes, that is correct, Cap Salty. Back in the year 2000, I was using RPG Maker 2000, and I made a game long time ago that I put out online. Needed a publishing name to put it under because my mum wouldn't let me use my real name, because back in those days, you know, the internet was like, don't tell people your real name on the internet, because they'll come and they'll murder you. Which is the opposite of nowadays, where everyone is just like, you know, online meeting people. But yeah, so I used the name RM2K Dev. That game doesn't exist anymore. What about adding some code to make your ship hover near your selected position? Yes! Andrew Kerr, yes. The player can move sort of left and right to their position. So it sort of hovers around that position. Yeah, we could do something like that. So we have the X and Y position of the player. And we want to add some sort of hovering to it. What can we use for that? Sorry, I'm just thinking. We could use the sine function to sort of offset our position a little bit, but that really would only work when we're moving. So what we need is a counter of sorts. Does GameMaker have a... Does anyone in the comment section know if GameMaker has a like a delta time function like Unity? Let's have a look at the documentation. If it does, we can sine wave the delta time. Get timer. Here we go. Returns a real. Returns the time your game has been running on the chosen platform in microsections. You could just use length dir and change length or dir. Delta time. Is it called delta time? Oh, you're right. It's called delta time. Yeah, that's easy. So let's just sine wave the delta time and then add it to the player's X and Y position. X plus equals sine delta time. Y plus equals sine delta time. We might need to use cosine or cos for that. Time since last step. yeah, we got something. Let's try cos on that one. FYI, guys, I'm shocking at math, so I'm just taking stabs in the dark here. There we go. Sine and cosine will give us that, but obviously we're going to be... we're experiencing some turbulence. Because delta time is fluctuating, so... Let's try get time. Get timer. I think you want current time. Are we going to remain on our offset? No, we're not. Lerp to position. Current time mod 360. And then length dir X and Y on it. Yeah, you could do that as well. Current time. Problem is, if we modify the position... Maybe do that when you hit with the bullet, yeah. No, but I think what Gloomy Toad... was it Gloomy Toad or was it someone else? Andrew Kerr. What Andrew Kerr was asking was, can we make the ship sort of like hover in... You know, so it moves back and forwards, but it remains constant in its position. Current time, mod 360. I'm just trying to think how we can do it, because if we modify the X position with anything... Well, actually, yeah, you're right. Current time, mod 360. Does mod work in... I don't even know. Let's have a look. Oh, shit. Error. Make an offset variable. Yeah. Yeah, see, we're losing our position here. Alright, let's try that. I don't think that's going to do any different, though, because offset X equals current time mod 360. Because if we apply that to our player's position, regardless of what we do, it's always going to... Before you edit the position, reset X to previous and then reset it afterwards. But then you wouldn't see it, though. Plus offset X. You gotta do degrees to radians, I think. Takes in as a radian. Oh, shit. Whoops. See, I would have thought the sine would have fluctuated between 0 and 1. Oh, I see what you mean. X minus equals offset X like that, and then define it. Offset X equals 0. Gotcha. Yeah, oh no, maths. There we go. Got it. Got it! Right, so now we've got offset X done. Let's do offset Y. Sin for Y and cos for X. There you go. Thank you, math people! Alright, so cos for X. And then sin for Y. There we go. So we subtract the offsets. There we go, offset X, offset Y. And then we add that, and then we add the offset to our Y variable as well. So now we'll have input with that. There we go. How does that look? Is that working? That's got to be offset Y. Use cos degrees to radian. Cos and sine take radians, not degrees. Alright. Degrees to radians. There we go. Deg to rad. There we go. Alright, let's have a look at this. There you go. Alright, except for the fact that Why? You're right, Gloomy Toad, by the way. Very right. Except the shit was so violent I won't be able to do anything inside, yeah. We'll get this motion sorted and then we'll apply it to everything. Except for the fact that it's kind of in a loop moving diagonally left to right. We want it to go... We have to negative one of these, don't we? This is just a guess, but that's better. There we go. Got it. Now let's tone it down a little bit. This is hacky math here, but 0.01. There we go. Let's try that. That does nothing. Add random value. Hello from Trinidad. Hello, Jodo. Did you make this from scratch? Not the graphics, but we've been working on it for the last hour and a half or so. So there we go. We've got some... I mean, that just makes it really hard to play. This is like expert mode, because if you're not touching the bullets, you will now. Let's tone that down even further. There we go. So now we have this kind of like space flying effect going on. Let's apply that to all of the other guys, all of the other ships. And this is where creating a base probably would have made life a million times easier. In our create event, let's add that in there. Let's add this in here as well. And then back to our player. I'm just copy pasting, by the way. Let's take this and then go to our enemies, step events. And then we'll just say, I see a bug. That would be why it wasn't working correctly. Alright, now the offset's too low. Let's get rid of this. Sorry guys, I'm just experimenting a bit with this. Do I have any experience with Spriter for creating sprites for games? Capsorti, I'm a terrible graphics artist. I don't have any experience doing graphics at all. I'm shocking at it. And actually, I'll tell you what, I want to half our Y effect. So it looks like it's spending more time. Is that going to half it? Sorry. That's better. So it spends more time going left to right than it does up to down. Hi, Damien. We are creating a space shooter. All right, there we go. So we've got the math now. Let's head over to our dude over here. We are adding our offsets. And then we'll just, down here, we'll say y plus equals offset x. And flight speed plus offset y. And we'll do the same thing for 2 and 3. There we go. Oh, offset X, not set before reading it. That's because I didn't put it in this one. Let's just copy paste these and stick that into our create event over here. There we go. Yeah, that's not quite what we wanted. I'm changing the soundtrack, by the way, because I found a... Sorry, I have to change it because the main one ended. There we go. Y plus equals offset X. Ah, thank you. I messed up again, did I? Offset Y. This is called careless programming. Make sure you guys don't do it. Offset X. Oh god, I did it again. X plus equals offset X. There we go. Don't program like me, people. It's sometimes shocking. I did. Thank you, Andrew. Alright, let's have a look, see how that looks. All right, now everyone's dancing to the same beat over here. We need to randomize these a little bit. So current time, mod 360, they need their own offset. So let's create a time offset variable equals random 10,000. Let's just do that, and then we'll throw that onto our time base. That way they'll all have a different offset, I think. Yeah, that works. So we'll do the same thing for the others. I know, Neil. It's shocking. You spread the bugs everywhere. They're like viruses. All it takes is one infected file and suddenly it's everywhere. Alright, so plus time offset. Is that what I call it? Time offset? Did I call it time base? Yeah, I call it time offset. Plus time offset. And then we'll do the same thing over in our object enemy 3, who's going to have a time offset as well. Thank you, Jodo. There we go, time offset, and then we'll throw the time offset onto the current time base. Time offset. There we go, mod 360. Should really be putting brackets in here to stop it from having issues, but it'll be fine. Will there not be a messy tutorial on this when it's done? No, there probably won't be a tutorial on this when it's done. This is just us messing around. Messing around in Game Maker. Now, the only other thing is their effects. What does current time mean? Current time, I think, is the time since the game started. So look. Returns the milliseconds passed since the operating system was started. There you go. That was supplied to us by someone in the comments, I think, because I didn't know it off the top of my head. I can't remember who it was. My apologies. Okay, so also, is there a way to have this loop itself? No, there isn't. Okay, sorry. So the other thing I want to do, I think that the effect. Don't forget the. Yeah, I know. I know. I should put brackets. You know what? It works fine. I'm not going to bother. I know that's dodgy coding, but oh well. Anyway, so that's done. We have the player colliding with bullets. We have the player flying. We have... Let's have a look what we've got so far. We have the ability to move around. I think what we need in reverse now is the player to be able to fire. And these offsets are just way too close. The timings are all wrong. Timing and balancing is going to be a big issue in this type of game because, as you can see, the guy creating the wave of bullets here, the gaps between his bullets are not large enough for the ship to pass through, so there's no way that you can get through without being hit. But that's fine. Anyway, that'll do for now. So let's create a way for the player to shoot. Comment section. It is time for your input. What do you think the best button for fire will be in a shmup? Because I have no idea. So let's have a look at the player. The bullets are all facing the correct direction. Now the player object, let's add a... We need a... Actually, let's do what we do in the enemies here. The player is going to have a fire rate. And I want to use the same variable name, so we'll have fire rate alarm 0. Space button. All right. Create event. Let's add our fire rates and our alarm. Space. You guys are all on the same page. All right. So let's have a... I'll tell you what, let's not have... No, let's have a fire rate. Let's have a fire rate. Then in alarm 0... All right. We will say... If keyboard check VK space, I'm pretty sure VK stands for virtual key, because they were going with this whole option. Control Alt Shift. That's exactly it. If the keyboard check space was selected, we're going to fire a bullet. Now we need a way to. We need to change something here. We need to make this 1 2, and 3. And then we also need to change this to sprite index. Let's add a type 1, 2, and 3. There we go. So type 1, 2, and 3. And then type 0 is going to be sprite. So now let's adjust these guys because they don't have the sprite variable. He doesn't fire. This one does fire. So in its fire, we need to change this to SPR enemy bullet. There we go. And then in this one, we need to change this one to SPR enemy bullet. Enemy bullet. And then we have that Control Alt Delete. Something about it seems right. Yeah, activates God mode. Sprite bullet, there we go. And they should still work. Let's just run the game to make sure that they do. Otherwise, we'll be in for a world of hurt. This one here needs to... Oh, I need to set that to argument 0. There we go. Okay, so they're still working. That's great. Now we can go ahead and do our player. We needed to add that in there so that our player can change the bullet type. And our enemy's fire bullet function, we'll just copy that, put it in our player. There we go. And this time we'll use sprite player bullet. Player bullet, we'll be using the 0 frame, the 90 for direction, because I think that's up. So now if you're holding the space bar, nothing happens. Keyboard check VK space on the alarm. Alarm 0 equals fire rate. Oh, because we need to reset the alarm. Alarm 0 equals fire rate. Okay, there we go. So now we should have the ability to fire bullets, except for the fact that the player is colliding with its own bullets when I hold the spacebar. So we don't want that to happen. We have two options when we do this. We can create another bullet object, one specifically for the player, or we can create a... I'm just thinking. Yeah, let's do that. All right, here's a different approach. Let's duplicate the bullet, and we'll call this here object player bullet. We'll give it the appropriate sprite for the player, and that way we won't pass the sprite across. We'll pass the bullet type across using the script. So now the player's bullet has a different type. Now in our enemies, we will, instead of passing the sprite, we'll pass the object. This will be obj bullet. This is obj bullet. There we go. And then in the player, instead of trying to pass the sprite, we pass obj player bullet. There we go. And then in our script, instead of trying to adjust the sprite, we will create whatever argument 0 is, type of bullet. This will give us more flexibility to create different kinds of bullets as well. So this will be argument 0. So now what should happen is we should create a different bullet object, and we don't collide with our own bullets for that specific reason. Andrew Kerr, yeah, we could have assigned a different boolean for team and detected collision, whether or not the bullet is on our player's collision, whatever you want to call it, settings. But I think in creating a different kind of bullet, we'll end up with the effect that we can create different kinds of objects in the future. So we might have a larger bullet or a bullet that shoots out and then it explodes into multiple bullets. We can use a different bullet object to define that later. That way we don't have to select what it is in each individual object. We can pass it into the fire script to determine what kind of bullet it is. So now let's make the enemies collide with the bullet. Now, something I want to do that I probably should have done when we started this, but I didn't. We're going to create an enemy base. OBJ enemy base. And all of our enemies are going to inherit from our base. And Andrew, maybe a power-up system. We'll just go to parents. We'll add children. I wonder if we can do it like this. Can we add the children just straight in? Yeah, we can. Cool. We'll add multiple children to this. There we go. So now they've all been childed to our enemy base. Then we'll deal with the collision to a player bullet in here. And we'll do the same code that we did for the player colliding with a bullet. So we'll just copy this one. But we'll put that into our enemy base. So other.x is the player bullet. We choose whether or not it's going to appear below or above, and then we destroy the bullet. So now these guys should all react to our player bullets, which they do. That's the power of inheritance right there. Alright, so now we've got these guys colliding with our bullets. Okay. I'm happy with that. Now, someone said earlier that the background was distracting. I'm wondering if there's a way to just lower the opacity of that in here. I don't know if you can, to be honest. Yeah, you can. Awesome. So what I'll do is I'll just lower the opacity of... Which is the slow one? This is the fast one. So these should be brighter because they're closer. So these are going to be... Let's set these guys to 100 alpha. There we go. And let's set these guys to like 26 alpha. There we go. Now the game should stand out a little bit better. Can the ship get fire behind it? Yes, it can, but you'd have to run into the bullets. See? Like that. Hang on. It's hard to time this. There you go. I just got one then. Yeah. You can get hit from behind. Now it's a little easier to see. And the actual room graphic itself, I wonder if we can lower the opacity of that, because that sprite is horrible. Make it more like space. Oh man, that looks so cool. Because we're exploiting the clear flags of the room. It's not clearing properly. That's awesome. Fake motion blur. But yeah, that's not going to work. Where is the clear flags? If we don't clear the depth buffer, it will... because it's... yeah. That's how we get, like... We don't clear the depth buffer, so I don't think it will work like that. Unless we put a new background layer behind it whose color is black with 100% opacity, and then on this one we adjust the alpha values so that our room is a little bit better. There we go. Oh, engine fire, right, gotcha. We could, but I don't know if I have sprites for that. I'm just using a pack of art from some guy. And yeah, we don't have a sprite for it, sorry. There we go. So that's looking a little better. So next up, I think we need to have... This is cool. It's looking good. All right, what's next? We have the player firing bullets. We need to have a health system. Now, these guys have a flash animation. I'm just wondering how we can do this quickly. We can't animate them, so we have to make it so that when they hit, they flash to this for like one frame, and then they go back to that. So let's say when the enemy has collided with a bullet. Yes. So when the enemy has collided with a bullet, image index equals 2. And then after they fire a bullet, so before they fire a bullet, no. I tell you what, let's do it like this. When they've been hit, they go to 2, and then a timer is started. So this will be alarm, we're just going to use alarm 1. The timer is going to be for 5, let's make it 10 frames. Then in alarm 1, we will say that the sprite goes back to normal. So return the sprite back to normal. what's delta time? Delta time is the time between frames. So for instance, if your game is running at 30 frames per second, always, delta time will be the time between each frame. And it shouldn't change because the game is running at a constant speed. But if your game drops below 30 frames per second, say it's struggling to run on a computer, it goes down to, say, 29 frames per second for one frame. Delta time is going to increase. It'll give you the difference between the last frame and the current frame. Now, if it was a frame delayed, as in it ran at 29 frames instead of 30 frames per second, there's a larger gap there that needs to be covered. So if you're moving an object across the screen and you want it to move at, 1 pixel per frame, for instance. Yeah, Andrew Kerr, that's I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so if you're so for instance, if you're moving something across the screen at 1 pixel per frame, 30 frames per second, you expect the object to move at exactly 30 pixels. But if the game ran at 29 frames, the object would move 29 pixels. So delta time is the difference between the two frames, so that you can add the difference to the movement, so that even if it moves at 29 frames, you can calculate the distance it was supposed to have moved in 30 frames. So for instance, if your game drops right down to 30 frames per second, right down to 15 frames per second, objects that were supposed to move 30 pixels in 30 frames of time, half a second at 60 frames per second, will still move the same distance. It's for calculating the differences. Anyway, so after it's been hit, we set an alarm off, and then we say image index returns to 0. Image index equals 0. So what should happen is they should get hit, flash, and then they'll go back to their... There we go. Miguel, hello. Now, I want the flashes to be a little faster, so let's make this 5. There we go, now they're flashing. Okay, that's cool. That's working now. They're flashing correctly. We should do the same thing for the player. Where is the player's sprite? Do we have the animation on the player to do this as well? Let's have a look. No, we don't have the thing. We don't have the animation on the player to do it. That's fine. We're just building a shmup, a simple shmup. It was an example for, I forget, Leon, that was his name. A simple example for a guy who made a comment earlier called Leon. I can't see actually who's in the stream at the moment, because this is a little different to Twitch, but anyway, off topic. So, enemy base. Now, we have this when they collide with the bullet, they're going to lose some health. So let's create a variable in here, call this enemy health equals, I don't know, let's set it to 5 as default. And then when they collide with this, we need to say flash the sprite, create an explosion. I better leave some comments or else I'm going to get confused. Create an explosion. Then we're going to need to I should have created the font size a bit bigger as well. Then we're going to need a take damage. So health minus equals other dot damage. And then what we'll do is in the bullets, we will set a damage value. Bullet parameters, say damage equals 1. We'll do the same thing for the player bullet, whose create event will be damage equals 1. I have a friend who loves to edit. He has a channel. Cool. I messed up. Shit, what did I mess up? Minus equals, sorry. Minus equals. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Alright, so we have minus equals other dot damage. Then if that goes below a certain threshold, it will go down. Now, the other thing we need to do is in all the enemies, we need to inherit that event at the beginning. So we need to inherit the base event. So event inherited. There we go. Let's put that at the beginning of all the create events for the enemies so they all get a health variable. But then they can modify from where they start. And the create event. Let's add that. Cool, done. So now we should have... No, it wasn't because of you, Miguel. Now they should have a health variable. There's no errors. That health variable should be going down when they take damage. Okay, so that's all good. So now we have a health variable. We're taking damage. We need to... Oh, I have a wicked idea. All right, we have... Sorry, got excited then. We're going to create an effect spawner. Thank you, Miguel. We're going to create a effect spawner. Object ship destroy. This is an effects. And then what we'll do is we'll create a... What are we going to do? We're going to create a timer. We're going to create a timer? Yeah, we'll create a timer. Alarm 0 equals... And we'll set it to random, and it will be random 10. Then what we'll do is in alarm 0... we will create... I'm trying to think how this works, by the way, sorry. We'll say 4... No, we won't do a for loop. We'll just create 1. Offset equals random 20 minus random 20. So this could be anywhere from plus 20 to negative 20. Offset X. We'll do the same thing for Y. Offset Y. We'll do the same thing there. Right, then what we'll do is we will create an explosion. So we'll say with... No, we won't say with. We'll just say instance create... Actually, we'll use the same thing we do when the player collides with a bullet. So we'll just go to the player's collision with a bullet event. We'll do the same code. That way they appear above and below. So ship destroy, we will create like this. Okay, so we're creating at the other... No, we don't use other.x because this is not a creation. This is just x plus offset x. And then in here, we're going to do y plus offset underscore y. We're going to choose a random value between -1 and +1. We're going to create the object explosion, and then we're going to trigger the alarm again. Alarm 0 equals, I don't know, 5. Actually, no, it should be random. Random 10. Right, now let's just have a look and see if we're getting a really nice sort of splatter pattern of explosions. Okay, okay, that'll do. There we go. We're getting a nice little splatter pattern of explosions there. The offsetting is too much, so let's reduce that a little bit. Let's make that 10 to 10. So I forget the scale of this game. Everything is really small. So we'll go 10 to 10, so we get closer bullets. Like that. And then what we'll do is we will create a counter. The counter will be 0, and then every time this happens, counter will increase, plus equals 1. And then before we trigger the alarm, we'll say if counter... This is really... I mean, this is a little bit... I wouldn't call it dodgy programming, but we're not doing things the best, most efficient way here. But, you know, to be honest, we don't really need to. We will destroy it after 15 effects have been created. Alright, so 15 is obviously too much, so let's drop that down to 10. So when a ship dies, it will basically play that effect in its place. There we go. And before we do any of this, we're going to randomize. That way it's different every time. Because I haven't randomized throughout the project yet. Alright, cool. So that's done. Now we can get rid of that on our map because we don't need it there. And what we'll do is we'll say when the enemy's health is less than or equal to 0. Actually, we're taking damage. Yeah, cool. So, has the... Sorry, deal with death. So if health... It's not called health, is it? It's called enemy health. If enemy health is less than or equal to 0, then we will destroy the ship. And we will leave behind... Actually, I think we'll put the effect down first. Obj underscore... No, sorry. We'll say instance create at depth. Hey, Death, let's make a deal. Instance create at depth. Position X and Y, and the depth is going to be 0 because the effect itself creates the explosion at plus or minus its own offset, so that's fine. And we'll create the OBJ ship destroy effect. And then we'll destroy the ship. So what should happen is if we hit them 5 times... They leave behind this sort of exploded pattern.
Everything changes.
Now, the one thing I don't like is the ship sort of just disappears and then the effect plays. I want them to sort of take damage and then go away. So what I think I'll do... let me have a think about this. 2 seconds. Okay, I know. We're going to pass the instance that the effect is supposed to destroy into the effect. So what we'll do is we'll say fade alpha. Yeah, we could fade alpha. I don't mind it just abruptly disappearing, but I want it to have damage appearing over it is what I mean. So we'll say with that, we'll say destroy target equals other. Right, and then over here in the effect, we can say when this counter has got to 5, so halfway through the effect, if counter is equal to 5, we need to say destroy target. Destroy target equals -1. Null. How do you do null in Game Maker? Nothing. Nil. I can't remember what they call it. Anyway, -1. That'll do. But then ship will spawn more explosions if you hit it more. You are right. You're absolutely right. All right, that was a shit idea. Let's get rid of that. No one. That's the one. That's it. Oh man. Alright, so you guys are right. Let's not do that. What we'll do then is we'll just spawn the effect as it was. We'll set a timer. Alarm 2 equals... Set it to 5. And then when alarm 2 fires, instance destroy. So, destroy self. There we go. Now it should have at least some effects go over it. And we can just use a timer to time it. Let's have a look at that timer. Excuse me. Set that to 10. Turn collision off. That's better. Set the timer to 15. Sorry, I'm just playing with the timings. That's better. That looks right. Yes, we need to turn the timings off, otherwise it's gonna... Yep, that's right. Otherwise, it will continue to create these. So what we'll do is we'll just say if... if the health is less than or equal to 0, we'll create this. we could simply do and alarm 2 is greater than, sorry, is equal to 0. Equals 0. That could work. Maybe. No, that doesn't work because the alarm is not equal to 0. Objects still exist, so it will still collide with bullets. So if the health is less than 0, create the destruction thing, set the timer. We'll just put something simple in here saying is dying equals false. Right? We'll just say if we'll only trigger this if is dying is false. And how do you do? Oh, Jesus Christ! And is dying. How do I spell that? Is dying. And is dying equals false. And then in here we'll just say is dying equals true. Let's have a look at that. There we go. So now it won't keep recolliding. We can keep hitting it while it is dying, which is fine, but it won't keep creating the effect. Okay, that's good enough for now. Next up, and I think the final thing that we'll do in this video is start setting up some like waves of enemies. So let's get these guys all moving again. So this guy's flight speed was set to 1, that's correct. Flight speed can be set to 1.2. And enemy 3, flight speed can be set to, I don't know, 1.4. Stop it from shooting while dying. Okay. We can do that too. So the shooting effect happens, all the firing is going to happen in alarm 0. So if we do an event inherited, can we break from the base? I'm not sure. Alarm 0, event inherited. And then in enemy 1, who doesn't do any shooting, that's fine. Now, can we break that code in here if we put alarm 0? So the event is inherited. Can we say break? Actually, I don't know. Is there a function to do that? Exit function? Exit. Just return? Is it return? It might be return. Like a script. Let's try that. Return true. Okay, return false. That'll do. If dying. If is dying. Return. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's just do it. Let's just do this and see if they all stop firing, because then we'll know if it works. No, they're all still firing. So that doesn't work. What about break? Break is usually for other stuff, but yeah, you can't use break without using a case statement. I wonder if there's a way to cancel execution. Exit. What does exit do? I thought it would have been break, to be honest. Break is for for loops, though. Exit. Simply exit. Here you go. Exit simply ends the execution of the current script or event. There we go. So it was exit. That's fine. Exit. So we can do that. So now no one should fire. No, but they're still firing. So that doesn't seem to work at all. Event inherited. Exit. I don't really want to come in and have to put a if everything, you know what I mean? Like an if statement in every firing function. I'd like to put something that just sort of like exit. How do you use exit though? Should probably read it. So drag and drop. Maybe I'm using it wrong. Does it take parameters? It's parented to the event, so you just exit. Yeah, I know. I was hoping it would flow to the child event though. You can't exit from the parent. All right, that's fine. I guess we will just have to do it the old-fashioned way. and simply just put a alarm equals -1. Yeah, that's a good point. Can you do that? Let's try that. These hacks, man. Alarm 0 equals -1. No, they still fire. That's alright. Let's just do it like if is dying. If is dying, exit. Can we do that? And then we'll put the same thing here instead of our call to parent. Ah, hang on a minute. They're not dying. So let's set the speed of this guy back to 0 so we can test him. Alright, let's have a look. So we shoot at that guy. Did he stop shooting? Yeah, they did. Yep, alright, cool. So they stop shooting now when they're dying. Okay, so the final thing that we're going to do today, I think, is set up some sort of waving system. Waves. Now, the way I think we do this is either through timing. Can we use timelines for this? So the timeline, I wonder if we can use a timeline. Let's have a look at this timeline stuff. So what do we have? We have these are moments. I was wondering if we can use timelines. So we say like moment 0, and we create an instance of wave 1. And then when wave 1 is done, we create an instance of wave 2, and then when wave 2 is done, we create an instance of wave 3. So it's kind of like a loop almost. Let's not use timelines actually. Let's just use a game controller. So in our system, let's create an object, obj_controller. It doesn't need a sprite, so that's fine. Let's head over to our room. We'll get rid of basically all of these objects except for our player. Get rid of all of that. And then we'll put our controller on the room. Yeah, Game Maker's like flow control is really hard sometimes. So we have a controller object now, and its job is going to be to spawn waves. And we will create a group, and we'll call these waves. And waves will create an object, obj wave_1. So the controller will start off by first... Now, what are the conditions that we use to trigger a wave? Are we going to have... I'm just trying to think what we can do to trigger a wave. Let me think. So wave 1, we can create an array. Here we go. Let's do this. Let's create an array of waves. So we'll say waves equals... Jesus, how do you do arrays in Game Maker? I'm used to JavaScript. Array functions. Array create. No, that's not what I want. I want just an inline array. One-dimensional array. There we go. Got it. So let's store a bunch of waves 0. Here we go. We will store obj wave_1. Then we'll create not a pointer, we'll create an index. We'll call it wave index equals 0. And then we'll say, let's just do this, wave 1, like that. So we'll create waves. This is just going to be a test, all right? So then so each wave can define its own, exactly, check if a wave exists, and if all enemies in the previous wave are dead, then the wave will self-destruct, and the controller will check to see if the wave exists. If the current wave doesn't exist, then it will move on to the next wave and create that. So I'm thinking that we have I don't want to do it in a step event, because constantly checking if an object exists seems like a waste of processing power. So let's just do it in alarm. Then we'll say alarm 0 equals 0. that'll be, sorry, equals 1, so that way it happens, you know, almost instantly. The wave index is 0, so we'll say, first of all, we need to spawn a wave. So we'll create the first wave. So we'll say instance create at depth 0, 0, 0, and it will be waves wave underscore index. Then we tell the alarm to trigger. Is that going to work? Why doesn't that work? We can't do that, can we? Because it's not an object. Might just be my dodgy coding up there. Is there a get object from array function? Instance. Nope. Shite. X, Y, depth, object. That needs to be an object. I wonder if I run it, if it'll just accept it. Ah, no, it's not. I just fucked up. Thanks, Andrew. There we go. Alright, so we create the first wave, we trigger the alarm. The alarm will trigger itself again in, I don't know, 30 frames. So alarm 0 equals, I'll just set it 15. That's good enough. So we'll say, we'll do a check to see if object exists, whatever object is in the current wave. And we'll say maximum wave end equals 2. So then we'll say if instance exists, this is going to be waves current wave. Is that what I called it? Wave index, sorry. Alright, so if instance exists, waves that. Okay. Then, so if that doesn't exist, so if not instance exists, let's make this more obvious by putting equals false. So if it doesn't exist, wave index plus equals 1, and then we create the new wave on the screen. Create new wave. So now we've added a new wave to the game. So we've got the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave. Create the new wave, then loop the alarm again. And then we say if wave index is greater than wave end, so wave end should be 3. So if wave index equals wave end, then we don't create. Alright, we're going to do something else. Otherwise, we will create the wave. Here, we're going to say, you've reached the end of the game. I don't know. Do something. Do something else. Otherwise, we'll create the next wave, which will be incremented by 1. So now let's create 3 waves. I'm just going to test this by creating create object. obj underscore wave underscore 2, and then I'll create another one, obj wave underscore 3. Now in each of these, they're going to have a create event and a timer. So, oops, not destroy. We'll just have a create event. Delete that event. We'll just, in the create event, say show debug message wave created, and then alarm 0 equals, I'm just setting up a timer so that we can test it, and then in that alarm will destroy itself. Alarm 0 instance destroy. There we go. So that was wave created, wave 1. Now let's do the same thing for wave 2 and 3. There we go. And we'll add that alarm 0. Delete event, yeah. And then instance destroy. So it'll destroy itself. And then we'll change the message here to say wave created, wave 2. And then finally over here, we'll have a create event that creates a wave called wave 3. And then it destroys itself in alarm 0. Instance destroy. There we go. So now that will destroy itself in alarm 0. And then in our controller, whose name I want to rename to Wave Controller because it just sounds cooler. It is going to create the waves, wait a second, and then when it reaches the end of the game, show debug message. End of waves reached. Now, hopefully, this will just work perfectly without any issues. Wave created, end of waves reached. But that didn't work. Let's set this to 2 and then 3, and let's find out why that didn't work. So, if wave index equals wave end, end of waves, if instance exists equals false, create the new wave, reset the alarm. Let's have a look. End of waves reached, yet it's still trying. Ah, I see. Then we only re-trigger the timer if we've created a new wave. Because if we created a new wave, we redo this timer so that it checks to see if the wave is over. If the wave has reached the end, show the debug message that the end of waves has been reached. Don't show another one. So it should create... No, shit, because then number 1 doesn't work. The first wave is created by itself, and then 15 timer seconds later, we check if it exists. Hang on a minute. We also need to say that if it did exist, we need to re-trigger the timer. There we go. So wave 1 is created, wave 2, wave 3, end of waves reached. No errors. Wonderful. Alrighty. So our wave system is working now. Now we have a method to control these waves. Let's increase the time that it takes for wave 1 to destroy itself to, say, 120. You need to put exit after debug. Should be one. Oh, but I don't want to exit the game. I'm leaving it open as like a space to just, you know, fade in a message that says, you know, like, welcome, congratulations, you reached the end of the game. So wave 1 should take a lot longer to destroy itself, which it did. Let's double that timer again, because I'm not sure if that was an offset timer issue. 240. Let's have a look. So wave 1 is taking a long time to destroy itself. Wave 2, and then wave 3, and then end of waves reached. Cool. Exit script, I mean. You need to put an exit after show debug message. Show debug message. End of waves reached. Exit script. Ooh. Why? It won't process anything again. The if statement will process. This will execute. It'll show the debug message. And then that's it. The alarms will stop because it never reaches another alarm token. So it won't keep processing or anything like that, if that's what you mean. Anyway, I think that's what you mean. If you kept it as it is with alarm equals at end. It was with alarm equals at the end. It's more efficient. But the alarm equals at the end will only fire if the instance didn't exist. Right? So it should never fire again. Because it never triggers this alarm again. So this will execute. And then this won't execute. This won't execute. And this whole script won't ever execute again. So. Morning, Felix. Felix. Alright, so the waves are working. Let's create a... Before I added else. Gotcha. I'm with you. Sorry, I'm with you now. Alright, so wave 1's job is going to be to create 10 enemy ones. 10 enemy ones. And when it's done creating 10 enemy ones, it will destroy itself. So we can get rid of these alarms now because we don't need them. Delete. Actually, shit, we still need the alarms. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. So we're going to say enemy... Oh, what are we going to do here? We're going to say counter equal... No, say... what are we calling this? Spawn counter equals 0. Then we will say alarm 0 equals 1. We're going to do that. Yeah. Then in alarm 0, we will say spawn counter plus equals 1, and we will spawn an enemy, and then we'll say max spawn equals 10. So then we'll say if spawn counter is greater than or equal to max spawn, we are going to destroy this object. Instance destroy. So we no longer need it. Otherwise, we're going to create an enemy 1 somewhere in the random width of the room. So we'll say instance create at depth. Create at depth. The X position is going to be randomized, so we'll just set it to 0 for now. The Y position is going to be, say, negative 15, because these guys are 15 pixels higher. I'll tell you what, I'll just put it negative 20. Depth is going to be 0, and the object is going to be obj enemy 1. So we'll create this enemy, and the X position is going to be xpos equals random room width minus 15 plus 15. That'll give it some margins. So it's 15 minus 30 because we want it to be 50. Won't destroying the wave cause wave 2 to appear? That's correct, Neil. So at the end of... you're right, yes. Destroying the wave will cause... No, that's fine. That's fine, because wave 1 will come down the room. You'll fight against the creatures of wave 1. Once wave 1 is done doing its thing, wave 2 will start automatically. So you'll still have creatures from... spaceships from wave 1 on the screen. It won't just, like, stop and wait. You see what I mean? Like, it'll be sequential. So we have objects controlling what each wave does. And that way, the game won't ever have a moment where it sort of pauses in between. It'll just get harder and harder and harder and harder. But we can control how it gets harder each time. So we create this. And then we set the alarm to reset itself. Alarm 0 equals random. Just say 10 plus random 100 for our timers. And then the xpos for the X position. Okay. So now let's run this and have a look. Wave 1 should be creating enemies. But I'm not seeing any enemies being created. And then it destroyed itself. I know why. I know why. These guys have been told to destroy themselves when they're outside of the room. Why aren't you sending more enemies? Give them hell on the first wave. Wave 2 will probably send enemies 1 and enemies 2. And then wave 3 will probably send enemies 1, 2, and maybe 1 of enemy 3. And then wave 4 will send like 5 enemy 2s and 6 enemy 3s. And we'll just get harder and harder and harder as the waves progress. So temporarily then, let's just get rid of this code if they're outside the room. And then we'll just say if Y position is greater than room height, then we'll destroy. What if I destroy self? Instance destroy. Let's have a look at your step event. Okay, and then this one here, step enemy 3. That should work. Right, so these guys are coming down the screen now. 1, 2, 3. They're probably a little too hard to kill, given that I can't even get over there fast enough. Right, now they're done. Wave 2 and Wave 3 spawned. So we can increase the the wave time for this and slow down those enemies. Now we're going to do a bit of balancing. So it's probably going to get a little bit more boring from this point onwards because we're just going to be playing with the numbers here. But we're going to do a bit of balancing. So I think the number of enemies that was created was not enough. We want 20 enemies. I think the time that they came out was a little too fast. So let's set this to 30 at minimum and 150 at maximum. And then I also think that that enemy is moving too fast. So let's set its speed from 1 to maybe... GML is dark, yeah. Let's set this guy to 0.5, so it moves... We can move twice as fast as these guys at the moment. So we've got time to come over and really shoot at them. You know, give them a bit of this. Make the game a bit more fun, you know? Alright. We'll also see when Wave 2 starts as well. Alright, so that was the end of Wave 1. Now Wave 2 has started. And then 3 and 4 have started. So that's good. I think that was a good time for Wave 1. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can also cheat a little bit when we want to debug these waves. Because we have this array, we can just go ahead and, you know, put Wave 2 in position 1's position. So we don't have to wait for Wave 1 to complete. We can just put Wave 2 here. There we go. So now we're playing with Wave 2. So let's go and have a look at Wave 2. Now, I think the code for this is the same. So let's duplicate this. Delete Wave 2. Rename this to be Wave 2. So this is now Wave 2. Now, the create event does the same thing. It tells you that Wave 2 was created. The spawn counter starts. It's going to do the same thing. The timings, I think, can be the same. Except this time, instead of enemy 1, we're going to say choose. So let's create a... How are we going to do this? Let's create a spawn object. And we'll say... This is going to be hacky, but we're just going to say obj enemy 1. We're going to do that 3 times, and then we'll say obj enemy 2. So what this means is that there's a 1 in 4 chance that a enemy 1 will appear. Andrew Kerr, I do have a Discord server, but it's hooked up to the Patreon account. So basically, if you... I can't remember what tier it is, but one of the tiers automatically adds people into the Patreon account. There's only 2 guys in there at the moment, but we talk, like, every day. He's already... Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think they've both already gone. No, there's three guys. Oh, wow, someone joined. Anyway, sorry, got off topic. So there's a 1 in 4 chance that an enemy 2 will appear in this round. And this time, the spawn rates will be a little faster. So we'll set this to 20 and 130. So Wave 2 should be a little more challenging. It should be a mixture of non-shooting guys and shooting guys, with a 1 in 4 chance that the shooting guy is spawned. Now, I'm not seeing any shooting guys at the moment. Yeah, then there should have been a shooting guy by this point. Have we disabled their shooting mechanisms? Ah, we have. They have no flight speed. That might be why. So let's set this guy to 0.75 for flight speed. And let's also increase the wave from... the other thing I need to do is I need to put the spawn in here. That's why. So that should have been right. So what we should have now for Wave 2... Let's just wait and see if we get a shooting one. It's a 1 in 4 chance, so we should see one sooner or later. Alright, that's not working. Let's just spawn object enemy 2 and make sure that they're actually spawning. Yeah, so the object enemy 2s are not spawning. They might be destroying themselves when they're outside. Yeah, they are. Delete event. Delete event. That's why. They were destroying themselves when they left the room. So now, there we go, they're shooting. Now their fire rate is way too fast. So let's go in here and change their fire rate from 2. No, the bullet speed is okay. It's the fire rate which is too fast. Let's set this to 30. That'll only be twice, 45. Alright, so now we should have... That's better. That's manageable. Actually, I'll be honest, it's probably even a little bit too hard. The fire rate is okay, the bullet speed is too fast. Let's set the bullet speed to like 1.5. 1.50. So it's 0.5 slower. That's better. Now you've got time to get in and get out of the way. Again, we have to play with their health values because their health is still a little bit too high. You should be able to just get in like that, and that should be enough. So maybe they only need to be hit twice. I will also say I think the fire rate is still too high, so let's go to 55. And the other thing we'll do in the create event is we'll take the enemy base, enemy health, and we'll set enemy 1 for the enemy health to be 2, and enemy 2's health to be 3. That should overwrite what was in the base object, and in theory should mean that we only need to hit them 3 times. I'll also add that I'm a really crappy player at these games, so just keep that in mind. But right, that's working. The 0.0 is there just because I'm fussy. I'm picky. So I might be like, you know, it's 1.6 would be too fast and 1.5 is too slow. So I want it to be like 1.539. You know, just to be really specific. It's there for no reason other than just that's how I like to write numbers. It keeps them clean for me. Alright, so wave 2 enemies are working. Now the other thing is, in wave 2, I want there to be a random chance that 2 enemies are spawned. So if random... So iRandom will use... iRandom 5 equals 3, we're going to spawn another enemy. What we'll do is we'll just grab this code and just throw it in there. Now, I really should optimize this, but that'll do. So there could be 2 enemies spawned in wave 2 at a random chance. Oh man, how's that? I think the rate is too high. Let's make this 8. iRandom, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, is the same as random, except it doesn't return a floating point. It returns an integer, so the number is always whole. It's always like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of like a number between 0 and 1. So there we go. We now have wave 1 and wave 2 working. Thank you. Double equals. Right, now the other thing is, instead of spawning enemy 2, it should spawn the spawn object. We don't need to redefine spawn as well, I think. We can just redo the position, so it'll be 2 of the same thing in this wave. All right. All right, that's cool. That's working quite well. So now let's go and design wave 3. Actually, one other thing I wanted to do, when the wave is created, this is just a aesthetic thing. I kind of want a cool system font. Does this pack have any fonts? Or a Sprite pack font? No, I don't think it does. I don't think I have any cool fonts either. Right, so I want a font. I want the Windows system fonts thing so I can find a sort of... I want a font. I know, it's been like 2.5 hours already. I hope we're still listening to royalty-free music. Yeah, we are. Good. Do I have any cool, like, spacey fonts? Does anyone know a good spacey font? Actually, let's just go to Duff Font. And let's pluck out a spacey font. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. We need a Shmup font. Shmup. Let's have a look. Is there a Shmup font? No, there isn't. What about space? Here we go. This one. Perfect. That's the font we're using for our game. BM space. Install. There we go. Okay. So what I want this to do is I want to go in here and say BM space. There it is. Well, yeah, I know. We're going to make the font size 20 or so. That'll be fine. FNT game large. Alright, so we have a font now. In our wave controller, we are going to say in the create event, display alpha equals 1. Then in our draw event, we are going to do the whole draw GUI, and we will draw text. So draw set font FNT game large, or say draw text. At 0, 0, the string is just going to be wave 1. Right, let's have a look. Oh, sorry, we're just, that's wave 1. We need to go back to our wave controller and set this to wave 1. Alright, cool. So that's put that on the screen. Now, I want that to be much larger. I want it to be huge. Like 110. Turn off anti-aliasing on the font. Yes, good call. Right, now that is too big. Let's bump that back down to 80. That is perfect. Keeps cutting in and out for me. Is the stream stable for you guys, or has it gone offline? That was really weird. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just going to restart the stream. Oh no, it looks like it's back. I'm not going to bother. Alright, I'm back. Let's just... I think maybe there was an internet issue. Anyway, then what we'll do is we'll say... display alpha minus equals 0.1. That was weird. Sorry, guys. It was 0.01. Yes, that is sick! Alright, so now it should display the wave name and then fade out. And then... Alright, so that's headed down now. And then what we'll do is we'll say Only do any of this if display alpha is greater than 0. And then we'll do that. That way it won't keep counting down forever. A lerp transition. We could lerp the alpha. Alright, display alpha equals lerp 1 to 0, 0.01. Sorry. Whatever it was to 0. There we go. Yeah, we can get rid of the if statement if we're using a lerp, because then we don't have a counter that's counting down. It just goes down. .05. Just playing with the numbers now to have a look and see what it... There we go. Wave. So what I want it to do is say wave, and then I want a bigger font, even bigger than this. Right, so we're going to duplicate this. What do you call this? Larger. I'm going to set this to like 200. Right, and then we're going to go back into our wave draw event. Excuse me. And then we'll say draw set font here, and then we'll do the same thing, and we'll say larger wave 1. Right, and then this time I want to center this in the screen. So the X position should be string. I think there's a function called string width. The string is 1, and we will divide that by 2, and then subtract half. Font game large, font game larger, font game largest. Yes, exactly. And then we need to take half of that. So let's just go string width equals, so we don't have to calculate this multiple times. Because, you know, I'm concerned about efficiency, and then I'm doing all of this shit in the draw function. It's like really efficient, right? So it should be string width divided by 2 minus half of string width. Minus string width divided by 2. What am I doing? Hang on a minute. The X... No. This is room width. Sorry. Room width divided by 2 minus half of the string width minus string width divided by 2. There we go. Oh crap, we've moved on to real music. Hang on, let me put the copyright free music back on. Google, it wasn't me. It was your auto playlist crap. So go ahead and... Oh shit. There we go. It was your auto playlist crap. Not me. It was you. Something minus itself equals... Yeah. So room width divided by 2 minus string width divided by 2. Okay, let's have a look. So that should put it in the center of the screen. Not set before reading it. Ah, okay, cool. Right, sorry, it just changed the name of my... Calls the YouTube cops, yeah. Thank you, Kyobin. Let's run this again. Alright, so there we go. We've got a giant wave 1. We also need to turn... Okay, so cool, that works. Now, the anti-aliasing is off. That should be fine. So now what we need to do... Hang on a minute. That wasn't in the center of the screen. Is it room width, then? Or is it window width? Get window... Oh. Display... I can't remember the function. Display get width. Let's try that. That's better. And then let's turn the lerp off so that it's always large, so we can actually see what it's doing before it goes away. Wave 1. Right, so that is... Yes, that is centered. Let's change the text to say 3. I just want to see what it looks like when it says 3. It's not centered. Maybe I need to subtract the entire string width. Okay, it's 75%. 1.75. I can never remember how you do this. There we go. Bang. Centered. Is that centered? I think it is. Okay. Center. Yeah, we'll center wave as well. I'm just trying to get the math right for this. So then the Y position, we're just going to come down, I don't know, 100. Let's see what that looks like. We need to come down more than 100. We need to come down 250. There we go. Wave 3. All right, then let's center the word wave. Let's do the same thing for the word wave. Wave, and then wave. And then we will do the same thing for the word wave. So now that should be centered, except this time we're going to come down 100. All right, this should be times 0.5. Hang on a minute. Something seems wrong. There we go. Times 0.5. So that's centered now. It's weird why the numbers don't center properly. I'm thinking the font has some sort of offset, because I can see a bit of a strange... It's exactly what happened. There we go. Sorry, I'm just playing with the numbers. There we go. Bam. That looks good. All right, wave 3. So now we can turn on the lerp again, let them fade away, because what will happen is when the wave starts, this will fire. Now, can we copy this event? Yes, we can. We're going to paste that event right there, and we're going to call it wave 2. There we go. And then we're going to paste the event right here again, and then we're going to call this one wave 3. It's already set. So now we just go back to wave 1, change the text to say number 1, and we should be good. Wave 1, and then they start coming, right? So these are the easy ones. Okay. We do need to add score and play a death and all that sort of stuff, but meh, it's alright. I want to see that wave 2 come up on the screen. Let's have a look. Okay. Waiting for... Come on, wave 2. Aw, man! It crashed! Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Yes. Yes, yes. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult. Oh, man. All right, so wave 2. What was... shite. I didn't even see what the error was. Oh, here. Oh, good. It's on the console. Display alpha. Right. I didn't put display alpha in the create event where it needs to be. So it's trying to alpha, like, nothing. It can't. Oh, man. That's the thing I like about... thank you, Andrew, then. Thank you. You have my sincerest, unsarcastic thanks. That's the thing I like about JavaScript is you can just throw a variable name in the script and it'll just be like, alright then. I see what you're doing. Go for it if you really want to. Alright. Come on, wave 2. Let's kill these guys off. Get to wave 2. Let's see if our progression system is working. Alright, wave 2. It was a bit odd looking because it kind of just popped on the screen, but I'm alright with that. So I think we actually need to lerp from 0 Screw it. It's fine as it is. We'll just leave it. Let's work on wave 3. So wave 3 is going to be primarily focused around spawning wave 2 enemies, and then spawning... Let's delete this one, actually. And we'll duplicate wave 2. Duplicate. And we'll call it wave 3, and we'll pretend like nothing happened. Right? So wave 3 is primarily going to be around spawning mostly enemy 2s, and then... currently working with Java. GUI. Yeah, Java is horrible. Java needs to die sooner than later. So a little bit of enemy 1, mostly enemy 2, and then a little bit of enemy 3. In this instance, and then enemy 3 we're going to adjust slightly because enemy 3 is way too fast. Enemy 3 needs to be like really slow at moving, but firing at a slower rate than this, 25 on the fire rate, and then the bullet speeds should be a little slower, so maybe like 0.80. Let's test wave 3. It also needs to say wave 3 and not wave 1. Let's change that to wave 3. And I'm just going to be the first person to admit here that this soundtrack is absolute garbage. So if you feel like this music is crap, I'm with you. So there we go. We've got these multi-spawners now. Now, they're too slow. That's way too slow. Their speed needs to be higher. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 1. Yeah, no, I know. I'm adjusting the waves so that we can test specific ones first. So back in here, the bullet speed is okay. The fire rate is too slow. Fire rate was 10 before. But we slowed the bullets down to make more space between them. So maybe the answer to this problem is to speed the bullets up, so that they give us a gap to travel through. So let's increase the speed of the bullets to, say, 2. I'm just playing with the numbers now to see what works. Right, so we've got... Oh yeah, geez, that's too hard. Let's go back to 1 and decrease the fire speed ever so slightly. Okay, let's have a look at that. That's manageable. Now, I still think that they are moving too fast. They're physically moving down the screen too fast. So let's set them to 0.1. Alright, let's try that out. So there'll be like this guy here, and then there's these guys up here. And now we've got the space that we need to really get in front of them and take them out. Like that. And actually, their frequency of spawning is probably too high, because this wave 3 is intense. So let's go back to the wave controller, and we will increase the array that spawns these guys to have another object 1. That way it'll be slightly less chance. Can I suggest a power-up? Yes, Diego, we certainly will do a power-up, but I think today I'm pretty much done at the moment because we've been streaming for about 3 hours, so I might be back tomorrow to do another continuation of this, but for now I just want to finish off this final wave, and then we'll probably put this source code up for download, leave a link in the description, and see if I can get the video to be on YouTube without copyright issues, or if I can just demonetize it and let it. See, now we've got the right gap. These guys are spawning at the right rates. This is manageable at the moment, which I think is going to be one of the biggest challenges of bullet hell. The other thing they need is they need a literal shit ton more health. Let's give them more health. So let's copy from enemy 2. We created the enemy health variable. I'm going to throw that down here, and they're going to need to be hit maybe 10 times. Because if you get, no, 20 times. Because if you get in front of them and you just start, like, holding down the spacebar, then they will die way too quickly. That's better. They need about that much health. Oh my god, what happened to Wave 2? When did Wave 2 get so hard? Wave 2 started, and suddenly there were a bunch of enemy 3s. You could add a modifier depending on the wave you're in, like +1 HP per wave. Yes. I was actually thinking that the gameplay itself would be for enemy you killed. Sorry, for every enemy you killed, you would gain... that would be your health. So you would start off with nothing, and then every enemy would be slightly stronger than the last. And they would do slightly more damage, and you'd have to kill more enemies to get more health. So your skill in the gameplay would be what allowed you to stay alive. Something like that, where the balance of your health to the enemy's power is always just slightly out of equilibrium against you. So it's always slightly harder than where you're currently at. But the values get larger and larger and larger. Anyway, just a thought. I don't know yet. So there's that. I think that's... I'm quite happy with Wave 3. I think I know what happened. There was a chance where the spawn selected an enemy 3, and then the random factor kicked in and created 2 of them at the same time, which I think is a little challenging. So let's again increase the frequency of these so that enemy 2s outnumber enemy 1s, enemy 3s are less. Now let's add a final and 4th wave. We're going to duplicate this. We're going to call this Wave 4. And in Wave 4, it's just going to be completely unfair. Wave 4 is just going to spawn mostly enemy 3. So we have enemy 2 and enemy 3, and it's outnumbered a lot. Oh, sorry, man. I didn't see your time question. Yeah, it's 1:45 p.m. I'm about to finish up and shoot off for lunch, so... we're going to create these guys, enemy 3s. This is Wave 4. And the spawn timer is going to be even lower. It's just going to be like, you know, like, best of luck to you, sir, kind of spawn timer. And let's head over here and start with Wave 4 and have a look what that looks like. It also needs to say Wave 4. So this needs to say Wave 4. There we go. Oh my god. Yeah, right. That might be a little too hard for this level. Maybe just a little too hard. Let's decrease the number of spawns from 20 to 5 for this wave and increase the timer so that it lasts longer. So the timers go up like that, and then they spawn mostly enemy 3s. Yeah, there's only a short number of them. Oh man, I'm no good at these games at all, honestly. There we go. So that's done. They take a lot of hits in order to beat. Now, here's a question for the audience here today. You guys know more about shmups than me, so with regards to bullets, can my bullet destroy their bullets? Is that a common Shmup type event. I'm not sure, so can anyone let me know? Alrighty. We have a second wave 2 spawned then. Never seen that before. Alright, cool. No worries. I think no. Alright. Thank you, Michael, Diego, and Andrew. End of waves reached. Kill off this final guy, and we've reached the end of the waves. Maybe if you get a power-up. Teed off. You guys really want to see power-ups. I will probably do them, just not today. So we'll continue this game tomorrow. I am done for today. Thank you guys for joining me. If you have enjoyed this video, I'm not sure how YouTube streaming works, so please leave a like on the video if you can. I don't know. And we will continue this at a later date, most likely tomorrow, or even this evening. Honestly, I don't know. Probably tomorrow though, so I'll try and find some power-up sprites. Leon, I hope that answered your question. I hope it sort of give you an idea of a shmup at least. No worries, everyone. Thank you for joining, and I will talk to you all in the next video, probably tomorrow, where we do power-ups. And if you did miss parts, I will try and get it uploaded. Even if I can't monetize it, like if it goes AdSense crazy, I will just like turn the monetization off and put it up so that you can watch this video regardless. If I can do that, but I'm not 100% whether or not YouTube will let me do that because it has music in it. So I'll try and see what I can do to get the video up if I can without losing the commentary. So thank you guys for joining today. Thank you for, I can't remember who it is. Let me check. Let me check quickly. I have to jump onto Patreon. There was one gentleman who joined earlier who signed up on Patreon. Let me find out so I can give you a shout out, mate. Dogen, thank you very much for that. Take care. I'll talk to you guys all later. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye for now.